Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull, and we've got a lot of recruiting stuff that's going to be coming up here over the next few months. We kind of talked about this, that from May to about the start of the season in August, is going to be pretty much all hands on deck to try to close out on players. Going to be several guys coming up on visits. We know we've got the 865 live coming up at the end of this month, but then June, we're going to be starting a lot more official visits. So this is going to be part one of an ongoing series where we're breaking down our current roster and then, what we need moving forward. And we'll also talk about where we stand with the players at each position of need. So please make sure before we get into the video to like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be talking about offensive line and defensive tackles today. All right, so let's start off with the offensive line. Great news for us this season is we've got several seniors that are going to play and that have played for a very long time. We should expect some good depth behind them as well. But the bad news is going to be those seniors cannot return for 2025. So it is going to be on those underclassmen to step up in a very major way, not just throughout this season, but obviously in the offseason next year, heading into 2025. But for the seniors, they cannot return. We've got Cooper Mays at center. We all know what he brings to this team. And we've got Javonte Spraggins, who's been our right guard. He's been one of the better offensive linemen on this team. John Campbell, who is now at right tackle. He's played left tackle for us as well. So very versatile. Dane Davis. Kind of the same thing could be said about him just as far as being versatile, but he's even more versatile because he can play any position on his offensive line. He's going to be a backup, but he is a swing tackle guy primarily. Andre Carrick at guard, and we've got Jackson Lampley also at guard, but he can play a little bit of center for us as well. So we are going to be leaning very heavily on the seniors, and just so everyone understands how this is broken down with the classes, it's not really based off of what their class is from a football perspective, where we've got the red shirts and things like that. It's more based off of how long they've been out of high school. Okay, so let's just keep that in mind as we're moving forward. And while I'm talking about that, down here in the right, that is the breakdown of the positions with the offensive line. So at center, we've got 3 to 4 currently, and next season we are projecting to have 2 to 3 at that position, so on and so forth. Now on to the juniors. We've got Larry Johnson at tackle. He's a guy that we do think can step in and be a pretty viable option. I think that he looked pretty solid in our orange and white game, but we'll see what he does, obviously, throughout the rest of the season and then heading into the offseason. And then we've got Masai Reddick also at tackle. He's been out for all of spring, so we can't really gauge where he's at this point, but you're hoping that he does step up for us. And then we've got Gus Hill at guard. Haven't seen him play very much at all, so kind of hate to say this, but he's probably not a guy that we're going to be depending on moving forward. Same thing can be said about Brian Grant at tackle. Now for the sophomores, we've got Bison Lang at center. He's probably going to be the guy in 2025. Lance Hurd at tackle, we already know, as long as he does stay with us, hopefully he does enjoy his time at Tennessee this season, and we have a whole lot of success. But we are going to need him at left tackle. He's going to be plug and play for the next 2 seasons for us. Then we've got Aiden Bustle at guard. He can also kind of play tackle. I didn't really put that in here because he's been working primarily at guard. Really felt great about him, coming out of high school. I thought that he would be a guy that could kind of play early, but we see that he had to gain some weight his first year on campus, and he's just kind of struggling to get his technique and fundamentals right. But we would expect that, in the offseason this year and then this entire season, then, the offseason next season, he should be in a good position where we can trust him to at least fight for some serious playing time, either 1A or 1B at one of the guard positions. Very hopeful about Aiden Bustle. Then we've got Trevor Duncan, who just made the transition to tackle. Love his frame. I love his footwork. He's a really good athlete. I think that he's got a really good shot, especially once he starts to fill out throughout this year. I think that he's got a pretty good shot to fight for one of the starting tackle positions. It would have to be at right tackle, so we'll see what happens there. But then we've also got Shemrod Umarov, who can play tackle or who can play guard. I think he's going to be our starter at left guard this season, so that should give him a whole lot of, obviously, experience heading into next year where he might kind of have that spot locked down moving forward. But if we kind of get into a bind, and we can also throw him over there at right tackle, I think that his entire frame and makeup is more built to be a tackle. But again, I really like him at guard as well. Now for the true freshman, we've got William Satterwhite at center. Like what I've seen from him so far, he's just going to have to get bigger. Really the same thing can be said about all the freshmen that we're about to go through. Then we've got Max Anderson, who's a guard or a center. He's looked pretty good at center and at guard. I like his upside a lot. Jesse Perry at tackle. Like what I've seen from him so far. Gage Ginther, I think he's looked pretty good at tackle. He's going to have to continue to get stronger. Bennett Warren, we haven't seen him just yet, but he will be up on campus here soon. How much has he progressed? P and I talked about this, over the weekend or something. We just said, hey, he's got everything that you would want. He just has to, maybe lose a little bit of weight, get his feet a little bit faster, and be able to bend some more, right? Like get some more flexibility. If he does that, then he could definitely be another one that we say, hey, he's going to be fighting for a starting position at the right tackle. And then we've got Jeremiah Hurd. Now, I'm kind of speculating here because he's got that perfect tackle frame, but do we want to throw him over there at defensive tackle where we're pretty shorthanded there? We're about to get to that here in just a minute. Y'all going to see just how shorthanded we are inside of that room. Does he kind of, get a first look there, or does the staff say, hey, we think that he's got too big of an upside to not try to play him at offensive tackle? So that's how we're looking as far as the offensive line goes currently. And again, okay, we've got 21 current offensive linemen, and we will only have 15 as far as we are projecting, coming into the 2025 season. So let's go ahead and flip the page to the recruits that we are targeting in the 2025 class. Starting off with David Sanders at offensive tackle. He's the number one offensive lineman in this class. He's a 5-star. He does have an official visit coming up on June the 21st. We're hoping that we can get him in for that 865 live event, especially with other players coming out there, because we do kind of feel like that could either help him to close out or even kind of help us to get some other guys, because he does seem like he's definitely trending towards Tennessee. Sounds like it's between us, Clemson, and Ohio State, the way that it's been for about a month now, but the insiders feel really good about this one. So if we could get David Sanders, that would be huge. But again, as you kind of look at how much tackle depth we have, especially talking about the underclassmen with our team this season, I really like the upside of all those guys. Those are some really good players. That's the best offensive line class that we've brought in by far. It's not even close. So do we feel like, we should be bringing in a whole lot of tackles? I don't know what the staff thinks. Several right here on this list that we're going to go through. I would say that if the staff can get them all, you probably bring all of them in, but they probably won't all be playing at tackle. I think we've got a little bit more of a need at guard, but obviously David Sanders is number one on our offensive line list. And the great news for us as Vol fans is we're in a great position with him. On to Jalen Matthews, who's a 4-star. He could play tackle or he could play guard. He does also have an official visit coming up here on June the 14th. Now, he's a player that we don't know exactly what's going on with him, because he was supposed to be announcing where he's going to be going like a month ago, or, he said, hey, something's coming out here soon, but it hasn't happened. Maybe he has, gone on a couple of visits and he's kind of reconsidered where he was leaning to. I think that we're in a really good position with him as well. We'll see. Okay. We've also heard about Georgia and some other schools, but who knows? I think that he might kind of be waiting to see how everything plays out as far as what team that he really likes. Who are they bringing in? He may not want to see a whole lot of competition. Some players don't like that. Some players are just fine with it, but he might not like it. So we'll keep you up to date as we get some more news on him. Does sound like he is trending mostly towards our Volunteers, and we are expecting that he should be on campus for the 865 live event. Next player is going to be Juan Gaston. He's a 5-star offensive tackle, leaning very heavily towards Georgia as far as what I've been hearing, but we still have a good shot. Now, some of this stuff might not be up to date as far as the, official visits and things like that. Not quite sure if Juan Gaston has set one up behind the scenes that I haven't seen about, but I would expect for him to at least come up and give us a real visit and give us a, real look. But he has visited Tennessee a couple of times, and he also has a teammate in Travis Smith that is trending towards Tennessee at the wide receiver position. We'll talk about him in a different video, but I do think that we are in a pretty solid spot with Juan Gaston as of right now. We bring him up, on a couple of visits, 865 live, and then that OV. Maybe we can kind of turn the tide some more where we can bring him in. I wouldn't say it's a huge deal if he does not commit, because we're in a great spot with David Sanders and with Jalen Matthews. Now, the next player is going to be Josh Petty, who I have listed as a guard, but he's listed as a 5-star offensive tackle, and he can play both, but just because of his stature, I think he's going to be more of a guard body, especially for us. Again, being that we have a little bit more of a pressing need, I feel like, at that guard position. He does have an official visit set up June the 7th, and I think that, him growing up as a Tennessee fan, we should be in a really good spot. I don't know what happened, but at some point, Tennessee kind of fell behind some other schools. I think that he just needs to feel more love from our staff. He's definitely going to be getting that. Don't know if he's coming up to the 865 live event, but if he does, that would be huge. He's not that far from Knoxville. I think that he's from like Roswell, something like that. Maybe like a 3-hour drive, something like that. So he should be able to come up several times on campus and get a good look at, what we are projecting him to do for us moving forward. Again, I think that there should be a good chance for us to close out on him, being that he would have a good shot to compete for some playing time early on as a true freshman. Then we've got Andrew Babalola, who's another 5-star tackle. Not quite sure what's going on here. Okay, he doesn't have an official visit set up. We might kind of be on the outside in. Sounds like he's trending more towards some Midwest schools, Kansas, Oklahoma, come to mind for me. But if we could get him in, that would be huge just to maybe add to a guy like David Sanders. I don't think that we need to add a bunch of tackles in this class, but again, if we can, why not? I say the more, the merrier. The plan could be to maybe push out some of the guys that are turning into veterans that are still not able to see the field and bring in a younger influx of talent. That would just make the most sense to me, but I cannot speak for the staff. So the next player is going to be Nick Brooks at tackle. He's a 4-star. Again, not quite sure where Tennessee is with him, but I do know that we are, like in his top 5. So hopefully we can close out with him. No official visit set up as far as I can see. Don't know about the 865 Live either. We should have some more information on that, y'all, coming out here as we get closer to that time. It's going to be at the end of this month. So I would say maybe like a week or 2 out, we should be able to get out, some more lists, just kind of saying, hey, these players are expected to be joining us. And the ones that are going to be joining us, we can say, yeah, Tennessee's in a pretty good spot with them. Now, the next player is going to be at guard, and that is Jacoby Ward. He's a 3-star. And I think that Tennessee's in a pretty solid spot with him. But really, the next player, Antoni Agamoro, and I don't know if I'm saying his name right, at guard. He's a 3-star. He's got an official visit that he already went on May the 4th. I really like his game. He's a guy that I think could also play tackle, but the staff has already came out and said that they like him more at guard. So don't know what's going to happen with him. He's from Oklahoma. Sounds like Oklahoma might be the team to beat. Same thing about Kansas. I think he wants to kind of stay close to his family. He's not super far away coming to Knoxville, but obviously those schools being a lot closer. I can tell you, because I have family out in Oklahoma, they are not typically going to travel very, very far away, right? I mean, sometimes they do, but usually they kind of stay close because it's not a very populated place. It's just different as far as what I grew up with here in Georgia, like more of the city type of vibe where, you're not too afraid to go away from home. So I don't know how things are going to play out with Antoni, but hopefully we can close out on him because, again, I really do like his game. Now, let's talk about the defensive tackles. And the first thing that should stand out to everybody is that senior group. Elijah Simmons, Bryson Eason, Big O, and Omar Norman-Lott will not be returning after this season. And whenever we're talking about defensive tackles, we're only going to be playing 2 at a time. So our 4 deep encompasses those 4 players. After that, it's not a whole lot of depth, okay? We do have some really good players. I would say 2 to 3 guys that I think we can really trust in. Coach G is going to do a great job of getting the most out of everyone, and then we do rotate a lot because in that Rabbits package, we're going to have some strong side Deans that will bump in and play tackle for us, and then we'll move some Leos around at the other ends just to get more of a pass rush look. So we will be able to stay fresh from that perspective. But as we're looking back at this list, keep in mind that those 4 guys are the best on this team. And I would say it's not necessarily close unless you talk about a guy like David Hobbs. We could maybe even throw Jackson Moy into that list as well. But looking at the juniors, Cameron Douglas, haven't heard a whole lot from him. I think he's pretty solid. Joshua Helston, same thing can be said there. And I've got a question mark next to Jamal Wallace's name because I'm not sure what class he's going to be coming in with just because he's a JUCO guy transferring in. Is he going to be a junior? Or is he going to be a sophomore or even a freshman? Not quite sure on that front. So not quite sure how much time we're going to have with him, but I think that he should be a really good defensive tackle option for us. Talks a lot about maybe playing outside on the edge as a strong side defensive end. I just think that he's going to have to lose too much weight for that to be possible. But if he stays up around 300 pounds with the twitchiness that he has, he can be a really, really good player. Very similar to like a David Hobbs and a Jackson Moy, and maybe even Bryson Eason, just, as far as being a bigger body and being twitchy. We could even throw Omar Norman-Lott into that mix as well. Let me also point this out. Tim Ammett, I've got him listed up under the seniors because that's where he that's where he is as far as how long he's been out of high school. But he is a redshirt junior. I expect for him to be joining us again next season. Haven't seen a whole lot from him. Looked pretty solid, I would say, in the orange and white game. But, as we're going through, talking about the sophomores, Nathan Robinson is another one that I think looked really good in the orange and white game. Again, I feel like David Hobbs is going to give us a ton. He's going to be our best defensive tackle, more than likely, heading into the 2025 season. Then at freshman, we've got Jeremiah Hurd. I've got to start next to him because I'm just not sure if he's going to be playing tackle on offense or on defense. We'll see what happens once he gets up on campus. And down here to the right, the total tackles that we have in 2024 is going to be 11 to 12. After that, we are anticipating to have 7 to 8. And looking at the defensive tackle recruiting, we've got Ethan Utley already committed. He's a 4-star. Absolutely love his game because he's got the size and he's got that burst. He's got the twitchiness that Coach G loves with his defensive tackles. And we just named off a few players earlier that are very, very similar to an Ethan Utley. I think that he's going to have to play a lot as a true freshman. The other good thing about it is you can tell that he's got a very high football IQ. That's going to come in handy in a very major way just because we're not very deep at that position. Ethan Utley is going to have to step up for us big time in the 2025 season. Now, these next two players, I believe Tennessee has the best chance with out of everyone else on this list. Starting off with Charles House, who's visited Tennessee several times. He is a Vols. He's a 3-star. Reminds me a lot of an Ethan Utley, okay? He is that bigger, twitchy body. I think that he's a little bit underrated as a 3-star. We'll see what happens, as On3 and 24/7 Sports and all these other sites continue to evaluate these players. Michael Thacker would be the other one that I feel like Tennessee has a really good shot with. Now, he is from Indiana. He's visited Notre Dame several times. Will he want to stay in state or does he want to, maybe venture out just a little bit and come on down to Knoxville? Again, knowing that we have a very pressing need at his position, I think that he could come in and give us a lot. Now, the next couple of players in Jarquez Carter, who's a 4-star, kind of an outside in, shot for Tennessee. Sounds like he's more of a Florida lean. Then we've got Brandon Brown, who's a Texas commit, but he is going to be coming on a visit June the 7th, so we'll see what happens. Can we flip him from Texas? That would be huge. Again, just knowing that Tennessee has a very pressing need at the tackle position. Then we've got Christian Garrett, who will be coming up on campus on June the 21st. He's another 4-star. Isaiah Campbell, who's a Clemson commit, who is expected to be joining us for the 865 live event. Now, we know that Dabo Swinney does not like for his commits to visit other schools. If that happens, I think that Tennessee is in a really good spot to be able to flip Isaiah Campbell from Clemson. And then the last player is going to be Bryce Jenkins, who's another 4-star defensive tackle. He will be up on campus for an official visit June the 21st. I think Tennessee's in a pretty good spot with him. Sounds like he really does like Tennessee, but he's one of those players that doesn't seem like, he's going to talk a whole lot about where he wants to go. Hopefully we can close out on him because, again, we are in dire need of some defensive tackles in this class that's coming up. Now, I will say this, it's because we probably won't be able to close out on most of these players. Having Ethan Utley in the boat is really good. I think that we would primarily want to add one more really good defensive tackle in this class. Sounds like that's Charles House, but why not add one more just for some depth purposes? I feel like this is going to be a position that we're going to be going out in that transfer portal very, very heavy after the season, just because we have got to get some more starting caliber bodies. And I could be way off on this. A lot of this will depend on how some of the other players that I would call maybe tweeners that are upperclassmen that haven't seen the field very much, how do they perform in 2024? If they show, hey, we can be breakout guys and we can play at a really high level, then I would say that Tennessee doesn't necessarily need to go to the transfer portal and get too many people. But I would say we probably will at least be targeting one really good defensive tackle for the 2025 season. But that's going to be it for this video. Again, y'all, we will have several more coming out here over the next few days, breaking down every single position group on this team. I hope that y'all enjoyed it. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.